Welcome to NFL Daily, where running backs have always mattered to us. I'm Gregg Rosenthal, and I'm here with Nick Shook. We are taping this show, Nick, June 23rd. It is officially the dead zone of the NFL season. Spoiler alert, football's not back for the next couple weeks, and yet we're going to be cranking out some fun NFL Daily content. No one I'd rather do it with than you, Nick.
You know, judging by your tone and the way that you made that claim about running backs, I don't know if I believe you, but I definitely believe you that we're in the dead zone. Surprisingly, we are operating in a world now in which the NFL dominates, I'd say, about 50 weeks out of the year. So to have two off, not bad. Good job, Shield.
People will still want to come up with it. It is a weird thing. Yeah, it's for people who aren't as familiar, this is the one time a year, not only a lot of media goes away, and we'll get into our schedule coming up in the next few weeks, but the teams are just literally out of the building until at least after July 4th. So even though we're getting closer to training camp, when NFL Daily is truly back to daily again, it is the one time a year, even though we're close, that teams are off. And yet, Nick, running backs have always mattered to me. I don't know why you're coming at me. I mean, it's like the coolest, the most fun position to watch. And so we're going to talk about them today. We're going to draft the best 20 running backs in the league, back and forth, who we would want to be our running back in our backfield this year, kind of a snapshot of where the position is at, and it's better than it's been in a long time. Since we last taped a show that was kind of taped that day, it was Patrick and Omar. Great job by them. They did the Jair Alexander news. Not a lot of news has popped up since. Some updates. Injury-wise, that Anthony Richardson fully expected to be back for training camp. I personally thought it was interesting that the Chiefs confirmed their first-round pick, Josh Simmons, fully ready for training camp, including contact. That's interesting. And then C.J. Mosley, the longtime Jets and Ravens linebacker, retired. So happy trails to C.J. Mosley, a really good player who just couldn't get medically cleared to play another year. But a Hall of Very good guy, 5 second-team All-Pros, like a very steady captain type, and that's about it. That's all you need for the news for the last 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, if you think about Mosley's career, I prefer you think about his career with the Ravens instead of the Jets, because he went to the Jets as a high-priced free agent. They obviously had their struggles. He did make a Pro Bowl and a second-team All-Pro in 2022, but again, yeah, he had some health issues in his last season and just felt like he never quite lived up to the contract. And yet he was a very good football player over the course of his career, especially if you think about his Ravens years where he was at his best.
You know what? I think he gave the Jets leadership that year he had where he got the second team All-Pro. He was outstanding. One of the guys that everyone said that played around him, second in Defensive Rookie of the Year back in 2014. Interestingly, he was one of the few people that completely opted out of the COVID season. If you remember, he didn't play at all that season, but was a really good player for the Ravens. And yes, had some nice years for the Jets. So happy trails to him. Let's get to the draft. I will give you the first overall pick. Again, the parameters, who we want playing running back this year. It is not a lifetime achievement award. It is not even just who was the best last year. Who is our type of guy? It's not fantasy numbers because we're taking everything into account, receiving, blocking, whatever you want. Who are the very best right now looking forward? You have the first pick.
It's going to be chalk. And really what I found in this exercise was that I like rooms more than running backs individually. I'm a big fan of certain rooms in the league. And we're not drafting rooms. So I'm going to go with the guy who's on the cover of Madden 26. I'm going with Saquon Barkley. It's as simple as that. There's no argument.
I think there could be an argument. It would be just that he's coming off this incredible season, and maybe we knock him for that the history of running backs, or can you do it 2 years in a row, and that this year is some of the other top 5 guys a slightly more consistent player on a snap-to-snap basis. You could have said that, Nick, in Saquon's career before this last one. The thing that changed in Philadelphia was, for instance, his success rate in New York was always a little hit or miss, was kind of low. Big plays, but a lot of negative plays. And that was partly because of the offensive line. But this last season, he was hitting the 6, the 7, the 8-yard gains in addition to the 80-yard gains.
Yeah, and he was a player that was 3 down back and was a home run hitter and a closer, which we hadn't seen from him except for early in his career before he encountered those injury struggles that he ran into in his final years with the Jets. And I think more than anything, yes, we like to see a guy rush for 2,000 yards. It's fun to watch that. It's cool to be like, I remember where I was when Saquon broke 2,000 yards. I remember that season. But what really I thought was most special to me beyond the Super Bowl victory was the fact that he was able to overcome all the doubt, all the naysayers, all the, well, Saquon might never be what we thought he was going to be because of all these injuries. No, he just went out and rushed for 2,000 yards and was an awesome running back. Do I think he's going to do it again? I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard. It's basically almost impossible to do it 2 years in a row. So I'm going to say no. But also, if he's the player he was last year, which I think he is, I'm picking him just for this year, he's at the top of my board.
Absolutely. He had 496 yards over expected, according to Next Gen Stats, in the second half of last season. That number, Nick, would have been more than any running back in an entire full season since 2018 when they started keeping track. So just in the second half, he was getting more extra yards than any runner in a full season since 2018, except for one guy who did it over the course of last season. We'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, he's the man. He would have been my number one pick. It gets interesting here. I think the next three backs in my mind could go in any order, but I'm taking Bijan Robinson. It's my team. It's who I want. Last year, it kind of snuck up on me that he had 1,887 yards from scrimmage and 15 touchdowns. And one thing that I love about him is he gets more than what's blocked. Since he entered the league, he has 15 more missed tackles forced than anyone else. So that's over a 3-year span. Derrick Henry's actually second in that. So that shows that that's been a skill set since day one. But what gets me about him is just how complete he is. Obviously, he's good as a pass catcher, but I mentioned success rate hasn't been as consistent for Saquon. As great as Saquon was, and I'm sure we'll get to Derrick Henry sooner than later, the league leader in success rate last year, and that you can measure it in different ways. Different companies measure it differently, but essentially it's getting a certain amount of yardage or a first down on plays, like over 4 yards on first down. The leader in success rate was Bijan Robinson last year, so he was extremely consistent in addition to giving you all the eye-popping plays that you expect from him.
Yeah, when I think about the Falcons, I think about the players that are actually quite talented that maybe don't get the exposure league-wide that they should. And he's one of them because people don't necessarily pay attention to the Falcons all the time. They did early in the season last year because they got off the hot start, but then they fell apart down the end. And it feels like they're in the shadows there. Players like Bijan are always in the shadows there. Kyle Pitts was the subject of that before, and now he's going into a pivotal year, of course. So I just want them to succeed as a team so that then he is elevated, Bijan Robinson, to a larger stage so that the rest of the football world can appreciate him properly, because those numbers that you just listed absolutely do not lie.
Right. He has improved steadily in each one of his seasons. I think we expect running backs to come into the league and just blow the doors off. And rookies are eligible, by the way, Nick. I don't know if I mentioned that to you on text.
They're eligible in fantasy drafts too.
Okay, they're eligible. He has gotten just a little bit better. He came in already, I think, better than people realize, like a top 10 type of back, and he's gotten just a little savvier, a little better in each one of his seasons. All right, give me who you have number 3 overall.
My number 3 is going to be Derrick Henry. And this was a pick that I may not have made even a year ago, because I thought, look, this guy, a lot of the tread has been worn off those tires. He's gotten a high volume of carries over the course of his career. He's been the rushing leader multiple times. He is the model of being a superhuman running back who will throw defenders through the air if you try to encounter him and take him on with an arm tackle. But what he did last year within Baltimore's offense told me that he still had plenty of gas left in that tank. Do I think that he's necessarily going to flirt with a career year this year? No, because they spread the ball around so much, but that's what makes him so effective. So I know we're talking about just running backs on their team and not necessarily taking into account all the circumstances around him, but you can't evaluate him without considering the fact that he plays with Lamar Jackson, that he plays behind an offensive line that got a lot better than most people would expect last year, and an offense that's balanced enough to throw to Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers so that they can't just load the box against Derrick Henry, which helps him succeed as much as he did last year. I believe in him for at least one more year as a guy who's going to hit home runs, who's going to run guys over, who's going to go over 1,000 yards, and is going to be a bell cow back for this team. So that's why I take him with my second pick.
It's crazy. If you look at the numbers, they were almost identical to his best season. When everyone remembers he ran for 2,100 yards from scrimmage, ran for over 2,000 in that COVID season where he was Offensive Player of the Year, and that's what you think of as his peak. And yet last season was actually right there. He, in a lot of ways, he was better because he took 50 less carries to get there. So he led success rate. In terms of, he led an EPA per play or total EPA. He actually ended up having more rushing yards over expected than Saquon Barkley last season by almost any measure. It was one of the best rushing seasons of all time. I saw another interesting stat. Next Gen does a lot of work for us that, out of the pistol, when they ran the pistol, he had the best running back season out of the pistol of any running back ever. 49 for 492 yards. He was 10 yards per carry out of the pistol. So he somehow is getting better as he gets older. I think that's a strong pick for number 3. But I would have disagreed. I actually would have had him 4th. I would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs 4th or 3rd. And so I'll take him 4th now. And again, I'm just thinking, I am projecting a little bit forward, and I'm thinking about what I would want on my team. And to me, he's just so versatile. He led the NFL in terms of yards per carry between the tackles. And that's the thing I think people don't really understand with Gibbs. Obviously, you have the home run ability that Saquon and Derrick Henry have. Gibbs had the highest explosive play rate in the league in terms of plus 10 plays, but he's very physical. He can run inside, he can run over people. And to me, he's just hitting his prime. So I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs next.
Yeah, he was up there on my list too. And I actually went back and forth with my choice here because this is where I think it gets a little interesting because it skews toward preference. And I like a guy who I can trust to make defenders miss, to break tackles, to be very hard to bring down, and to also make a difference out of the backfield as a pass catcher. I like bell cows. I like Josh Jacobs. That's where I'm taking him here.
Okay.
And this might be a little high for what most people would expect, but you look at success rate. You want to talk about, different running backs with higher success rate. His actually was lower than, it was outside of the top 10, really out of the top 15 when it comes to next gen stats. And yet when I think about a per down back, if circumstances are right, the play is schemed up properly, he's going to make a play. He's going to get those extra yards. He's going to be a guy that I can look down my roster and say, I would give him the ball 25 times a game and feel perfectly fine about it because I know he's a workhorse. So that's why I would take him.
Yeah, bigger workload certainly than Gibbs. Although, for instance, Gibbs 250 carries, so less, but 50 catches, so it gives you that receiving game. Jacobs does that too. He's made people miss in terms of missed tackles since the day he entered the league. No, he would have been either next or 2 away on my list. He does have a little bit of an every other year thing,
he does.
But he's kind of earned that spot. Almost reminds me of a little of Mon Green back in the day for the Packers in terms of a guy who's never the best, but man, it's really awesome to have a guy that you can give the ball to 300 times and you'll know is a top 7 or 8 back and you don't have to worry about him. I think that's the part of Josh Jacobs' career that he's in now. I am going to take a rookie now. I'm going to Ashton Jeanty. I love a lot of other running backs in the league, and I know you might think this is high. This is 6th overall, but I just thought would I rather have Ashton Jeanty or let's say Christian McCaffrey, who's going to come up at some point, or whoever else is coming up next? I'm confident enough in Jeanty. I'm going 6th overall. It's not a position where players have to ease their way into the league. Often they peak rather early. Even great all-time backs are great right away, like an Adrian Peterson, like a LaDainian Tomlinson. So the contact balance, the consistency, I think he's going to bring. I'm believing in Jeanty. I don't need to see anything.
No, and you know what? This is a rare case in which I would agree with a high evaluation of a rookie coming into the league. Usually I'm very anti, don't put, especially when it comes to fantasy, don't put a lot of stock on a guy who hasn't played it down in the NFL yet because you're playing blind essentially. But if somebody was buying stock in teams this year, you are buying all the stock in the Raiders, so I'm not at all surprised that you're taking Ashton Jeanty here. And what you just said makes a whole lot of sense because what you see on tape translates to the pro game. It's just a matter of how fast can he hit the ground running? Can they scheme it up well for him? Because you don't want to put him behind an offensive line that's not good and he has to try to be a superhero just to gain a few yards. But if it's in a vacuum, yes, I totally agree with you.
Well, part of the reason I did it, Nick, and I'm curious how you would answer with your next pick. I thought what would who would NFL teams rather have for 2025? Even if it is somehow in a weird universe where they could only take him for 1 year, would they rather have Ashton Jeanty or would they rather have the guy they already have who's coming up on our list? I bet almost all of them would take Ashton Jeanty. I really do, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we're all wrong about our evaluations. Who do you got?
No, I agree with you on that too. My next pick this is where I get a little uncertain, a little nervous because I have a hard time putting stock in running backs who can't stay on the field, but I'm going with it anyway, and I'm going with Christian McCaffrey, who never got rolling last year because of injury, and his season ended prematurely, and it was basically just a wash or a waste of a season for him. But I believe in the talent, and I believe that he would still have one healthy season in him if we're only playing for one season. And there are few players who are as dynamic and as explosive as he is when he's fully healthy. So at this point, I'm getting him with this value. Christian McCaffrey, I'm taking it.
Yeah, at first I had him high on this list. And as I kept doing, I kept moving him down and down. And I realized he's only been healthy, Nick, 3 out of the last 7 years.
So maybe this will be 4.
That's not enough to me. It's just not enough. He did the 2 straight in San Francisco, but then when you have a completely missed season, essentially last year, then it reminds you of all the other ones that happened before that with Carolina. And that, to me, that's part of the position, unlike any other, where availability is really a trait. It's really a skill. It's why I feel fine taking a guy like Kyren Williams 8th, because I want to have some love for the consistent player. 5th in success rate. In his 2 seasons, he's 1,350 yards from scrimmage, 1,490 yards from scrimmage. He played the most snaps last season. This shocked me of any running back in the league. Doesn't that surprise you? Because you think of them like bringing in some other backs, but he's there blocking. He's there as a terrific receiver. He's there to pick up 5 when you block 3. He's just consistent. And to me, he is a guy I am just trusting to be out on the field. So it's a rare position where I'm not just going for ceiling. I actually would rather have him than McCaffrey, because I'd rather just have a guy that I know is going to be there, even though I know at their peaks, obviously, McCaffrey is a better player.
Yeah, that, and, Kyren Williams' value to the Rams is even more noticeable. It's obvious, painfully so, when he's not on the field, because they are so much worse as a running team without him than they are with him on the field. He is a special type of player and a guy that a lot of people didn't see coming and kind of forget about until he's back on the field and makes a big play. And then they're just constantly reminded of how good he is, and they have to accept that he's, an excellent running back. So I agree with you on that. And I'm not surprised by the total snap count, because it's visible. Basically, if he's available and he's playing a lot, the Rams are going to win games. And if they win games, they'll make the playoffs. And that's basically how last season went. So that all tracks. I'm going to go, I'm overdrafting here. And this is because I believe that the Bills are treating this man wrong. Okay. And it's James Cook. It's James Cook, because workhorse back, and a guy who, if you actually get him in the right scheme and run it with him with intent, you're not in the Ken Dorsey offense. You're more in the Joe Brady offense, and you're handing it to him, many times a game, and you're letting him get going. He can be a big time difference maker. And we spent all this time paying attention to Josh Allen and everybody else, and rightfully so. But he's a big part of that offense that I think isn't getting the love he deserves from that organization as he goes into a contract year. And frankly, I would pay him and keep him and put him in the right situation and ride him as a bell cow. So that's why I take him this high.
Yeah, I love it. I had him a few spots lower, but I don't think it's crazy to go James Cook that high. You look at the last couple of years, very similar in terms of yards from scrimmage, 1560 2 years ago, then 1216 last year, but out of the 18 touchdowns. And he's my type of back, that he's just an excellent receiver, a versatile receiver. You want him on the field, even though they have a great third down back, so they don't need to lean into it. Cook can do absolutely everything. So I'm fine with that. I'm struggling with my next pick. If it was actually my team, this next group is all very close. I had Cook a little lower, but I'm just going to give James Conner some love here to wrap out the top 10.
Yes.
His first 2,000-yard rushing seasons were the last 2, but he did get over 1,500 yards from scrimmage last year, and he's really improved as a receiver. He's very high in terms of forcing missed tackles, and he would rank really high in a stat that doesn't exist that Adrian Peterson, I think, would be the all-time leader in, at least of players that I've watched, which is running hard per snap. Joe Mixon is going to be high in this one. I'm sure he'll come up later. The effort on every single run is outstanding. He's getting better as he gets older. And so there's a couple flashier options out there, but I'm going James Conner, number 10.
I like that pick because, much like Kyren Williams at the Rams, you could basically predict the Cardinals' outcomes last year, whether he had a good game or not. If he was near 100 yards on the ground, they probably won the game. If he was bottled up, they probably lost. And he was so important to them in that regard, and is such a hard runner. I totally agree. I'm a big fan of his, and every time he had a big game, I enjoyed it very much. I am going to take a guy who statistically resonates with those who like to scroll down spreadsheets, but those who like availability, little on the sideline here, because that's where he spent a lot of his time over the last few years, and it's Jonathan Taylor from the Colts. He finished last year with 1,431 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns, and yet here he is going 11th in our draft. It was quiet because of the Colts and their dysfunction at quarterback and his checkered injury past, that, he hasn't been a reliable player. But when he's there and he's healthy, and sometimes it's more in spurts than consistent, it still looks really amazing. So to get him here at 11th, I'm going to take that all day.
I love it. It's exactly where I had him, but there's a reason. If James Cook is kind of my type, I think Jonathan Taylor is not. Not that big plays aren't incredibly valuable, but it's why I'm not going to knock Kyren Williams too much. If your 25 to 30 yard run would have been 60 if it was Jonathan Taylor for a touchdown, like that is a big edge for Taylor. But the consistency on always looking for home runs, grinding out the 4, 5, 6 yard runs, and then more importantly, the receiving. He has an old school like box score, only 136 yards as a receiver, just kind of a zero in that department. Not that he can't catch the ball, though he has some pretty high profile drops, but they also just don't trust him as a blocker and to really understand the full thing. So I think that's why he is a great runner. But that's also why he went 11th. All right, I'm gonna go Aaron Jones, number 12, just a guy I love. And I had this feeling that he kind of faded at the end of last year, and then by the end, he actually had over 1,500 yards from scrimmage. He was not great in the red zone. He's not a true just give the ball to him and he's like your main guy. But how many guys, we already have gone through, how many of those are there really? Not that many. He actually hasn't lost his speed at all. He is the 6th fastest player, according to Next Gen Stats, on a per snap basis in terms of just the miles per hour that he is running. So the speed is still there. And I'm going Aaron Jones, number 12. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back and wrap up the rest of the running back draft. They're back. Back on NFL almost daily. Yeah, you probably noticed this time of year we're taking a little bit of a step back. But this week we have regular shows throughout the week. We've got our crew with Jordan Rodrigue and Colleen Wolfe for our next show. We'll have a Friday show as well. And then we've been working on a really exciting project that's going to start going up next week. And so everyone be on the lookout for that. Also, thank you to everyone who's listened to me lately and been writing reviews on iTunes and Spotify, giving us 5-star reviews. It really helps us out. Subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate you all. All right, number 13 overall in the running back draft. Nick, this is your most important pick.
Oh, this is my most important pick? Wow, because it came back after the break and got to keep the listener engaged. Okay, cool. Well, listener, pull up a chair, because we're going to pick a guy that I think Gregg overlooked. A guy that's been one of Gregg's favorites over the course of this man's career. It's Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints. A running back who fits exactly what Gregg looks for on a 3-down basis. Let's just look at his numbers from last year. Yes, he finished with 950 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. He played in 14 games, but he added another 543 through the air with a couple of touchdown catches. Gregg, I think back to a couple of years ago when the Saints offense was just dreadful, which we could say for most of the last 3 years. And it was a game in Seattle in which their defense won. I think the final score might have been 10-6. And it felt like the entire Saints offense with Jameis Winston at quarterback was just drop back, let Alvin Kamara run a choice route and just throw it wherever he decides to go. And that's how we're going to move the ball in that game. And that's the type of running back he can be. I don't know if he's the home run hitter. In fact, I don't think he's the home run hitter that he used to be, but he's still an every down guy that presents a threat that when he's healthy is still one of your top weapons on the field. So to let him come down to 13, I'm just going to scoop him up here and ride off into the sunset all happy.
Well, you're just doing this to annoy me. I told you during the break that I forgot someone, and we should make this a sponsored segment. Every single one of these drafts, there is someone I was like, oh, wait, I meant to take him way earlier. And I said that during the break. I didn't say who it was, and you guessed it. It was Kamara.
Yeah. Well, that's the benefit of knowing you for a decade.
I want to apologize to that man. So this is why you got to listen to the pod and not just look at the rankings that we're going to put out on social. We should still do it because I had Kamara ranked 8th. And it's not that I forgot him. Like I got my sheet. I printed it out like an old man. We've got a printer here. And for some reason, I spaced looking past. I had him 8th. I had him ahead of McCaffrey and Connor and even Taylor. It kind of snuck up that he proved what I had believed for the last handful of years, which is that if they could just block for him, he really hadn't declined as much as the numbers showed, that I thought he still had juice, that I thought he's very intelligent. Reminds me a lot of Frank Gore in terms of his intelligence in the passing game. And then, you mentioned it last year. I mean, he went for 1,493 yards from scrimmage. He had the highest target rate by far of running backs in the league. Actually had one of the highest target rates of any player. I think it was top 5, including wide receivers. So if he's on the field, what that means is they're throwing him the ball, like 68 catches for 540 yards. And you're like, okay, he's just catching a bunch of dump offs. No, he's running a lot of different routes. And yes, he doesn't have the long speed. He just doesn't. You're absolutely right. Top 5, Nick, according to Next Gen Stats, in speed crossing the line of scrimmage. So that's that initial burst. And when you watch him, I see that too. And yeah, he's those long plays that maybe he hit earlier in his career, like that's not quite as there, but he can crease you if you can block. And so I think he's going to have a good year. I really regret that. I let him, if I could trade, I would trade him up higher, but I'm not allowed to.
Well, the only trade I'm accepting is Ashton Jeanty for Alvin Kamara. So I don't think that's an offer.
That's too rich.
Consider.
I would give you Kyren at the 8th pick. I don't even know what that means since we're not actually playing fantasy here. I will go my next pick. That broke my heart. I'm just such a space cadet. Maybe we can put a little note with the top 20 rankings that we put out that Greg just forgot and apologizes. Bucky Irving.
Oh yeah, I love this pick.
The highest rate of forced missed tackles in the entire league. Over 5 yards per carry on inside runs and outside runs. There were some numbers, and this is, in large part due to the great Bucs offensive line. But when teams played single high safety and Bucky Irving was on the field, like he averaged a preposterously high yards per carry. Just like you literally could not play single high against Bucky Irving. You took that extra guy from not in the box. Like he is going to have some space. He is going to make you miss. And the numbers, like the advanced numbers and the raw numbers, would actually tell you he was already like a top 8 to 10 back. I'm not ready to go there, but I'm happy to put him this high.
Yeah, 9th in success rate, right behind Saquon Barkley by just a 0.1% difference. A player who finished with 186 rushing yards over expected, and a guy who I think is just scratching the surface. One of my favorite guys out of the combine in his class went to Tampa. They needed a running back. He took Rachaad White's job, rightfully so. He's on the path to success. I love that pick. Up now, you've kind of wiped out a little bit of what was remaining of my board, but we're going to go to a guy that I think, look, yeah, he had a couple of ankle injuries last year. Yes, one was caused, if not both, by hip drop tackles. But we're going with Joe Mixon in Houston because I think Joe Mixon was kind of not treated poorly, but undervalued a little bit by Cincinnati. They let go of him for a 7th round pick. They were going to cut him. He ends up going to Houston. He has a really good start, gets hurt, misses some time, comes back, has a nice little, period of games before he gets hurt again. If he was healthy over the course of the season, he'd be an unquestioned weapon in that offense more than he is. And the idea of him with the Texans, with CJ Stroud, with everybody that they have a receiver, and then adding in whatever is left of Nick Chubb, I feel good about him going into the season. Now, it might be one of his last productive seasons of his career, considering how long he's been in the NFL, but he's just a guy that I like. He runs hard. He can hit the home run. He can make plays. He's just one of my favorite running backs to watch, so that's why I'm going to take him here.
Yeah, the only question is really if he can keep not just on the field, but when he comes out at the beginning of the season and he's fully healthy, he looks one way, or sometimes if he has a week or two off and then is coming back, like he looks one way, and then you see it fade just a little bit if he loses some of the burst, some of the physicality. But he's averaged over 1,350 yards from scrimmage over the last 4 years, so extremely consistent. This is right where I had him in the draft as well. I'm going back to another rookie here for 16 because when it comes down to it, I am confident enough in Omari and Hampton. He is one of my favorite running back evaluations over the last handful of years. I think he is complete, a great blocker. I think he's going to matter in the passing game. He can be a big playmaker. I think in a perfect world, he's a little bit bigger and a little more complete of a Jonathan Taylor type of player. Probably not going to make you miss as much as a lot of the running backs ahead of him, but that's okay when you have the juice and I think that the third down availability that he's going to have. So I would take him over the rest of the veterans on the list. I feel good about the UNC back at 16.
Yeah, I like that pick too. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about rooms is I really love the Chargers room. The balance between Najee Harris and Omari and Hampton is really exciting for me, especially with their identity as a team that wants to be physical, that wants to win on the ground. They have two different backs that can do a lot of different things. They can balance them well together and make quite a tandem. I think it's going to be very beneficial for them going into 2025. Next up on my list, we're going to go Devon Achane. And I'm going there because of the big play capability, because he is a guy you always have to account for on the field because of that home run speed that he has. I don't see him as an every down back, but I do see him as the best option that they have in that backfield who could grow into something more if the rest of their offense could get back on track, because they certainly weren't last year. I like his raw potential, the untapped potential that we've yet to see, and what we've already seen from him with the big plays.
I mean, a ridiculously efficient rookie season. Last year was kind of the opposite, where felt like he left yards on the field. Not great blocking, certainly, but he was hunting big plays. He's a guy who won't look good in terms of yards over expected. I think he was under because he was trying to make things happen. I'm not going to say it's a reach, but I had him more around 25. But I think it's more styles. It depends what you're looking for. There are the runners at this spot, it's kind of pick your favorite. I do think one back has been underrated in our draft more than any other. And, I've taken other guys over him, so that's on me too. And that's Tony Pollard. What does Tony Pollard need to do to get a little more respect? He's actually been consistent in terms of production, despite, you think of him at the end of Dallas getting hurt, but that was at the end of a season. Over 1,300 yards from scrimmage in 3 straight. He was 6th last season in terms of yards after contact. So he's a guy who actually makes plays on his own. I thought last season was about as good as he's ever run, but really no one noticed because it was in Tennessee. And so he was someone, if you were still sticking around with your Game Pass condensed or whatever deep into week 13, 14, it was man, Pollard is the guy I think that they wanted him to be when they brought him to Tennessee. The guy that Dallas almost never let him be, a real 1A type of guy, complete guy. Really nothing I could say was wrong with Pollard. Maybe not the number one guy you would pick to get 2 yards when it's 4th and goal and run through tackles, but not a zero in that respect either. And so I really like him here at 18. I'm glad he got on the list at least.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think that he, unfortunately, is a representation of the mismanagement of the running back position on the part of the Dallas Cowboys over the last 2 to 3 years, because they had a chance to make him their guy and stick with him, and they let him walk. And he walked to Tennessee, where he obviously he wasn't in a good scenario because their quarterback situation was in flux, and they're still a rebuilding team, but the talent is undeniable there. I mean, everything that you just said, I totally agree with. And that if he's in the right situation, if they get better as an offense, with Cam Ward being there and they've shored up the offensive line again, I think we could see great things from him because he's got the juice for sure.
He's making $7 million a year too, Nick.
I know he's cheap. It doesn't. Why did you not keep him, Dallas? What are you doing?
There is a level of veteran running back that becomes available in free agency that the second contracts are very much worth it, because then the Titans don't have to worry about that position, and that is not a lot to pay.
No.
Your last pick, Shook. This is it.
My last
Make
pick.
sure you get whoever you want on this list. Needs to be
throwback. Well, we're throwing it back. I'm going to take the other half of the Lions tandem. I'm going David Montgomery. That's a guy who I watched in multiple instances last year just win the war of attrition, the ground and pound. I'm bigger and stronger. I'm going to run harder than you, and I'm going to close this game right now by running between the tackles and doing what my coaches want. I want a guy like that on my team. I don't care if he doesn't bring everything to the table in every area that you get from other running backs. That's a guy that I want in my depth chart, and the capability, like you just said, to get 4th and 2 yards. I'm giving it to David Montgomery. I can trust him. He's a gritty type of old school running back. I love him. He's my last pick.
He was first in the NFL last year in success rate on under center runs. So it's exactly what you say. How did the NFL used to be played? Like under center.
Exactly.
He's going to get you 4 to 5 yards. He was absolutely my next pick too. We've reached 20, and now it's like, who do I want to make sure is on this list? Because a lot of them aren't my types. Some options. I'm just going to throw to give people some love. We didn't pick Travion Henderson. And I'm not going to, but just wanted to send him some love. Pacheco's coming off a bad season, so he's not going to get drafted. Chuba Hubbard really improved, but I think doesn't quite have the juice to make this list. I like what I saw out of Tyrone Tracy. I think Chase Brown is an ascending player. But ultimately, this last spot comes down to 3 players for me, either Breece Hall, Ken Walker, or Ramondre Stevenson. Now,
those are the next 3 on my list.
Okay. Now, in my heart, Ramondre is more my type of guy. He's coming off a season where he fumbled. He was not good. He's not coming off of a good season. Neither is Breece Hall. And yet, like, Ramondre is, to me, the most complete of these guys, and like the guy that would be my style. But I'm so, anxiety ridden about being called just a Patriots homer. I will take Ken Walker, who I had written down next. It is fun to have a runner who can run one way, look like he's going to get tackled for a 5-yard loss, and run for 40 the other way. And he was hit behind the line of scrimmage so often and was playing in such a bad situation. I know Ramondre was too, but ultimately, man, that guy, it would be great to see him behind a good offensive line, and I think can be a really dynamic playmaker. Has the highest ceiling. I'm torn. If it was actually my team, maybe I would take Ramondre. I think he's got a bounce-back season coming up and is a really good NFL player, but I will go Kenneth Walker for just the highlight reel plays.
Yeah, I don't hate this pick at all for everything that you just stated. I'm on board with that. I am curious, though, because it was such a forgettable season for Breece Hall. Where does he, because we don't know what the Jets are going to be. They have a new identity, new quarterback, new everything else. But do you see a bounce back year for him that reminds us of the guy he was? Because you want to talk about home run hitters. He was a home run hitter a couple of years ago. And maybe that's more my style. I don't know. I'm kind of bouncing between the two. But do you think that is within him going into 2025 and maybe even 2026, even though we're not considering that year in this draft?
Absolutely. This is a confirming my prior situation. There is something about running backs of, you know it when you see it, and I like instincts. I like the feel of making people miss in a small area in a hole. The vision. I think Ramondre is very good at that, even though he's not going to be a big playmaker. He's more on the Frank Gore type of mold.
Yeah.
Breece Hall, I've never wrapped my arms around too, because to me he doesn't feel yet as talented as he is. He doesn't feel as instinctive as a back as some of these other guys. Just like a truly great natural just runner, but he's an athlete, and he could make this ranking look very disrespectful with a big season. It could absolutely happen.
He could. And you know what? We can eat that crow. That's fine. That's how this thing works.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Jets are totally in on him. That he was dangled a little bit, so I think they'll spread it around. But it is a position where opportunity makes all the difference in the world. So who knows? Maybe an RJ Harvey or Quinton Judkins. I'm trying to think of some other players that didn't come up. The Caleb Johnson, Travis Etienne, maybe he'll bounce back. Any of those players could bounce on this list for next year. We will put it out, and we will see who we get made fun of the most. Shook. It's gonna be a minute until we have you back on NFL Daily. So enjoy the time off, and I don't know what you're doing this offseason.
That's all good, because yesterday I narrowly avoided getting a sunburn on the top of my head. So maybe by the time I come back, I'll be looking like a tomato. You don't know. Could be possible.
And don't celebrate the Cavs suddenly being the favorites in the Eastern Conference next year just because Halliburton and Tatum are injured going into next year.
Well, nobody celebrates injuries, but the Cavs had their own injuries in the Eastern Conference semifinals that they had to deal with too. So, We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's a long way away. We got a lot of football
I
before
watched
then.
that Game 7 on a flight back to LA, and it broke my heart. You know, I'm not a Pacers fan. We will be back in your feed on Wednesday morning. Yes, Colleen Wolfe, myself, and Jordan Rodrigue. And yeah, I can't lie. This is the part of the season. Football's not back, but we're gonna make you want to listen anyways.